Welcome to session 3 of your Divine Purpose devotional. I hope you've been enjoying it so far, and I know some of you have already bought the book, and a very close friend of mine is going through the book every morning with his wife. I'm very encouraged by the feedback he's been giving me as well. So we're jumping in here at really going through the fivefold. Actually, the next 5 sessions we'll just look at each of the fivefold. Just want to unpack that a little bit, maybe demystify it a little bit. I think we've often left these kind of out there, these big titles, and especially the apostle, and that's where I want to start. And in a book that really is about the apostolic, because your divine purpose is really wrapped up in knowing that you are sent, you are apostolic. We've already looked at that. So it would be remiss of me not to take a little bit of time and just look at, what does it mean to you when I use the word an apostle? And of course, we can so easily get caught up, some streams or denominations will title their leaders apostle, and, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we'll end up associating the word apostle with the size of a church or a network or a church planting strategy. And again, I'd say, nothing wrong with that at all. But really the key is that the apostle is a sent one. And as we've already looked at, the first apostle is Jesus. He's the ultimate example of being sent. So that's a really important place to start. And he, of course, taught us to pray on earth as it is in heaven. And so let's just have a quick look at a couple of things, because for me, what's really striking, and once again, I'm referring to this book. Those of you who bought it know that already. If you've not got hold of a copy of it yet, you'll probably find it really helpful as I go through this devotional series with this goal of every believer knowing that they're sent. But one of the things that's really striking to me is that when we look at the example of Jesus and Paul as apostles, and clearly they are, we don't immediately focus on what they built, but rather on who they were, what happened when they showed up, and how they influenced those around them. And that for me is really, really vital. It doesn't mean that an apostle won't have a church planting strategy, won't have a network, won't be gathering lots of apostles, although there is a slight irony in that, I think, sometimes, that, if we measure an apostle by the number of apostles they can gather, are they gathering or are they sending? So little irony thrown in there. But let me just look for a minute, because my approach to understanding and defining an apostle is 5 dynamics that I personally use. Now, I would also add to that specifically, and a very good friend of mine and Bethel Church down in McCullum, I remember the first time many years ago, he said to me, it doesn't matter what office you have, the key is there someone, as it were, who commissioned you? Are there peers that walk alongside you? And are there those that follow you in your title? So that really is really very, very important to start with. So firstly, though, my first dynamic is that they're commissioned, that there is a sense of commission. And of course, that commission is being sent. That's the first dynamic. That's the dynamic that Jesus had. And we often use the illustration of the Romans, that apostle was a word that Jesus kind of borrowed from the culture of the day. And the Romans had an apostle who would be sent, I usually say the lead person on the lead ship, leaving Rome to go and establish a Roman culture somewhere else. So they were sent with an assignment, they were commissioned. Secondly, and it's directly related, the apostle has a heaven to earth assignment. That's really the nature of their assignment. They are the sent ones, sent from heaven to earth, as we all are, but specifically with the apostle. And so for me, and we'll look at it several times, but they must live his or her life from the perspective of heaven, believing in the supernatural and raising a generation that minister the works of Jesus. And, Jesus, the great verse of Jesus where he says, if you don't believe me, believe my works. And we've shied from this at times, but it's something very, very important. And we see that with the Apostle Paul as well, where it's very, very clear. I didn't come with clever words, he says. I came with a demonstration of power. So we've got a commissioning. We've got a heaven on earth supernatural mindset. And then I believe it's about whole body leadership. We see that in Ephesians chapter 4. They are those, and this for me is a way that I've often looked, and I'm very reassured when I find this in an apostle, is when I find an apostle who has ministered through the other four gifts as well. And I've had the privilege of sitting under one such apostle who really began life in a place called the Salt House, which was a pure evangelism, then was a pastor, teacher in a small church up in the mountains of 300 people, had an absolute passion for the prophetic and is a prophet and prophesies, and is finally, of course, an apostle, the apostle that I've been privileged to serve, Bill Johnson. So I do believe that there is something very important about the ability of the apostle to see things in a whole body perspective. I also believe, number 4, that there is always a relational context to the apostle. It's about family. It's about heaven's government is family. And this is absolutely vital. Paul, of course, says, I, Paul, send you Timothy to remind you of my works in Christ. It was this incredible relational dynamic. And of course, Paul is the one that gives us in Romans chapter 8 that we have already received the spirit of adoption by which we cry, Abba, Father. And his letters and his writings are relational. And of course, ultimately, the Son of God is the sent one, sent from heaven to earth. So there's a relational nature. And then finally, the apostle brings the culture of heaven to earth. That's absolutely vital and a crucial dynamic as well. And I often think that really the key for an apostolic move of God is not so much doctrinal statements as it is statements of culture which invite everyone to step in. And again, we'll be looking at culture a little bit later on. So looks like my screen's gone off behind, but you already know what this one was about. This is, what does an apostle mean to you? And they are the commissioned ones. They are the ones who live with a heaven on earth perspective. They have a whole body leadership assignment. They absolutely fuel the entire environment with the relational, and they bring the culture of heaven to earth, an apostolic culture. And they would be less probably concerned about specific doctrinal statements, not that they don't believe in clear doctrine, but that they would be more about inviting everyone to be more Christ-like and to move and minister in signs, wonders, and miracles. So what does an apostle mean to you? I hope that's helped you. And we've got reviewing what feature of the apostle can you see in Paul's journey. And we can read of his story in a number of places. Declare what you want to reinforce about what you've learned today. And of course, when you position yourselves to really honor an apostle, you step into being apostolic. And how have you defined an apostle? How would you describe the characteristics and fruit of an apostolic culture? So I hope that's helped you today. And tomorrow we're going to move and we're going to have a look at prophets are apostolic. So thanks for joining me today, and jump on again tomorrow.